Well, I did not think we would be here in Week 15 as some of the talking heads around are questioning whether or not the Eagles should bench Jalen Hurts. So today we'll dive into that discussion and talk about whether or not there's any realistic possibility of this happening. Also, Coach Nick Sirianni was asked this question this morning, so we'll hear his reaction to the conversation, and we'll talk about a deeper issue of Nick Sirianni picking his own offensive coordinators. And lastly, a mind-numbing stat about this Eagles offense. All that and more coming up here on A to Z Philly. But welcome into the show. I'm RB. And as we do every week, let's take our quick weekly glance over at the NFC standings. Despite what everybody has been saying, and if you had been plopped onto this planet with no background information or knowledge, you might think the Eagles are the worst team in the NFL. But matter of fact, they're still 8-5, and they're the third team in the NFC. And they're in a playoff positioning. So things could be worse. But right now, the Rams seem to be looking superior. The Packers have somehow won 4 in a row after losing to the Panthers and the Eagles and looking miserable. And it does feel wide open, in my personal opinion. So we'll see how things play out. A lot of, in my opinion, misleading records here. But the Eagles have to get their stuff together. But like I said, things could always be worse, and we started off with some news in the NFL that the Colts are signing Phillip Rivers to the practice squad, and now they're saying that he has a good chance of playing this week. The guy hasn't played in 5 years. He is 44 years old. This is borderline insanity. He's about to push his Hall of Fame projection back, I guess, 5 more years, right? This is insane. So, ladies and gentlemen, just remember, it could always be worse. But speaking of that, we got a clip from Hard Knocks last night. Somebody sent this to me, and this was the second episode. We know they've been filming for the past couple of weeks, and apparently Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown smiling at practice, talking it up. Here's my unpopular opinion on this Hard Knocks clip. I don't care about Hard Knocks. I really don't. It was nice to see the Giants meltdown. It was nice to see the Saquon thing play out. But in terms of the Eagles on Hard Knocks right now, I don't care. Win a football game. That is the priority. That's all that matters for me. And speaking of the other guy in this clip, A.J. Brown, A.J. had 3 drops for the Eagles in the loss to the Chargers. His last drop in a regular season game before that game, a couple nights ago, 2023. So A.J. Brown had a bad game. He doesn't usually drop the ball. He still had 100 yards, and he's now had 100-plus yards for 3 straight games. But guess what? It doesn't matter because they aren't winning. Matter of fact, the Eagles were 4-0 before A.J. put out that first cryptic tweet this year. I think they were 5-1 or 5-2 before he made that cryptic Instagram caption. And they were 7-2 before he went on that live stream making the comments about being unhappy and miserable. So I don't care anymore. I want everybody to be on the same page. I want them to win. But to do that, the offense as a whole has to be on the same page. And this is an absolutely mind-numbing stat for me. Shio Kapadia says 5 straight games where the Eagles have finished with a success rate 30th percentile or worse, 1 touchdown on 13 offensive possessions. The Eagles are now 28th in offensive success rate on the season. This is by far their worst over the last 20 years. So somebody has to wake up. Whether it's Nick Sirianni and his offense, whether it's Kevin Patullo calling plays, we know Jalen Hurts played horrible the other night. It feels like one thing is leading to the next. It's like a field of dominoes, and when you go to pick up one of the dominoes, the next one knocks over 5 more. So there's so many issues going on right now, but let's talk about Jalen Hurts, because Jalen Hurts is now winless in his last 5 games when he throws 30-plus passes. And now that has led to a huge discussion over the past 24 to 40 hours. Should the Philadelphia Eagles bench Jalen Hurts? Nick Sirianni was asked about benching Jalen Hurts. He says, no, I think that is ridiculous. And I have to agree. If you are someone out there that thinks that Jalen Hurts should be benched, you are simply out of your mind. Now, I think Tanner McKee is a really good backup quarterback, and I think he could play pretty well right now. But you don't bench a Super Bowl MVP quarterback. Jalen Hurts is 27 years old. He is in the middle of his prime now. And he has been to 2 Super Bowls. He almost beat the Chiefs twice. He knocked them off last year. in complete domination. He has played two of his best games on the biggest stage and has a Super Bowl MVP. The Kansas City Chiefs right now are under 500. Do you think they're going around saying, should we bench Patrick Mahomes? No, you don't. I know people have short-term memory and quick attention spans nowadays, but do we not remember that leading up to the bye week, Jalen Hurts had 15 touchdowns and 1 interception, and he was actually a bit in the MVP conversation. So just because he has had a couple horrendous games does not mean you pull the plug, and especially given the fact the Eagles are in a playoff push right now, bench your starting quarterback. That is not the way to go, and I think Jalen Hurts deserves more of a leash than people are giving him right now. Jalen Hurts is still on pace to throw the most touchdowns of his career. He is still on pace to have maybe his best career completion percentage. He is still throwing the best deep ball of his career. He's still doing a lot of really good things this year. So the only realistic call right now is to replace the play caller, but I don't know if Nick Sirianni is going to do that because, one, it is too late in the season. Number two, it's his buddy. And number three, Nick Sirianni's ego. He saw this back in 2023, and he was asked about this last week in terms of not making the same mistakes. And he said, well, all of those mistakes in 2023 led us to a trophy in 2024, kind of pumping his chest out saying, look, I'm a Super Bowl winning head coach. Don't tell me what to do. So overall, I am sticking it out with one. I am riding with Jalen Hurts to the end. And no matter what, Jalen Hurts has done some ridiculous things like winning 19 games in a 20-game stretch, will rally the troops and find a way to get this team back together. But let's talk about 2023 for a second again, because it is looking very eerily similar to what is going on right now. 2023, you had a 3-point Monday night crushing road loss in December, and then you played the Giants, Cardinals, and the Giants. This time, it's the Raiders, Commanders, Bills, Commanders. So let's hope that the Raiders are not the Cardinals. Let's hope that the Eagles don't go in here and get embarrassed on Sunday, because if the Eagles lose to the Raiders, who have been so bad that they got rid of Chip Kelly, then there is no hope. The Eagles are losing out if they lose to the Raiders at home on Sunday. But again, regardless, the Eagles have to come up with a better game plan. And the coaches keep saying it's on them, but I want to look at the OC thing again for a second, because let me tell you something, okay? Nick Sirianni should never be able to pick his own offensive coordinator again. And I know people are going to respond by saying, well, why is he here then? What does he do? It's the same thing when you look at the corporate world, right? Some guys are CEOs and they delegate everything and people want to rally behind those guys. That's literally what Sirianni is here for. I agree. It is frustrating that this guy cannot call plays by himself. It would make life so much easier. But look at how history has repeated itself. 2021, Eagles start off 2-5 in Sirianni's rookie year. Sirianni hands over the keys to Shane Steichen. They turn it around, they run the ball, they go to the playoffs, and they lose. Then in the next year, Shane Steichen continues calling plays. They have a dominant season. They go to the Super Bowl and almost knock off the Kansas City Chiefs. The next year, Nick Sirianni hires a first-time play caller, gives the keys to one of his good friends, Brian Johnson, who looks absolutely perplexed. Like the moment is too big for him. The Eagles start 10-1, and then they end up collapsing, and there's no offensive creativity. Then last year in 2024, Kellen Moore comes in, Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman step in to make the decision. The Eagles once again have a experienced play caller who takes this team to a Super Bowl, and they put together one of the best stretches ever and win the damn Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs. And then here we are back again in 2025 with the Eagles having so much offensive talent again, and they hand the keys back to another first-time play caller who's a friend of Nick Sirianni's that has no experience calling plays. So this is why I put more blame on the offensive play caller than a guy like Jalen Hurts, because every time Jalen Hurts has had a competent, experienced play caller, they go to the Super Bowl. I'm perfectly okay admitting that Jalen Hurts is a game manager and that he needs a competent offensive system and some continuity in some way to play formidable, because guess what? You could probably say that about any great ever. Most of them need good systems. They need good talent around them, good coaches to succeed. That is a given. At the end of the day, we know that the Eagles have all of this talent on their offense. So rather than blowing up the team and getting rid of a bunch of players that have helped them win a Super Bowl, why don't they replicate what they did in 22 and 24 and let Jeff Lurie and Howie Roseman step in and bring in an experienced play caller to get this team back on track. Another interesting stat that we kind of talked about the other night, the Eagles in shotgun versus under center. They went with under center 15 times in the game against the Chargers. They averaged 10.2 yards per play. And in shotgun for 51 plays, they only averaged 4.2 yards per play. So look, I'm not a genius, but I've been saying this since the Giants and Vikings games. You saw it in a limited sample size. You saw under center and play action and bootlegs and all these different things work and, kind of spice it up for the Eagles offense. They don't do it enough. Why? That is a preparation issue, an offensive coordinator issue, and a head coach issue. So they need to get back to deploying all these different things and doing what works. Lastly, we'll end it on a positive. Quinyon Mitchell looks like one of the best cornerbacks in the league. 2 targets, 0 catches allowed, 0 touchdowns, 0 yards. He is unbelievable. 3rd time this year he has pitched a shutout and has not allowed a touchdown. Shout out to Quinyon Mitchell. He is potentially on his way to a Pro Bowl and a first-team All-Pro, and I'm so happy that the Eagles have a lockdown corner for many years to come. But those are all my thoughts. Give me yours down below. How do you feel about the Jalen Hurts situation? Appreciate everybody for tapping in. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. All that being said, I'll catch you on the next one.